Are we ready to go? We are. I always love this part. Hello, Lynette. Are you out there?
Hello, council member, commissioners. I am here.
Very good. With that, we will call the October 3rd, 2022 meeting of the Planning and Transportation Commission to order. And with that, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And our roll call, please.
Commissioner Roof.
Here.
Commissioner Garvey.
Here.
Commissioner Castaneda. Vice Chair Clements.
Here.
And Chair Iacoponi.
Here. Very good. Well, good evening, everyone. And for all of those who might be following along from home, good evening. Our first item on the agenda, as it is always, is public comment. And this is the opportunity for the public to bring to the commission items that are not on tonight's agenda. The commission may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed as allowed by the Brown Act, Government Code Section 54954.2. However, the Commission's general policy is to refer items to staff for attention or have a matter placed on future Commission agenda item for more comprehensive action or report. And we have no one in the audience here tonight. Lynette, are there any callers online?
Yes, we do. We have one person raise their hand, David.
Very good. David, good evening and welcome. And you have 2 minutes, please.
Hello. Good evening to the chair and commissioner and staff. My name is David Tusman, resident of San Carlos. I just want to give a quick big thank you to staff and the city for changing the pedestrian patterns on San Carlos Avenue. I noticed it about 2 weeks ago that if I'm crossing San Carlos and I hit the pedestrian button, the light changes almost immediately, as opposed to waiting whatever 30 seconds, 1 minute that the cars were going to go, and that there's a leading pedestrian signal so that you get the walk signal a few seconds before even the cars going the same direction go. And so the small difference is actually really impactful, just making a short walking trip even shorter. You don't gotta wait, and feeling much safer because there's not cars going right when you start to go. So thanks again for that. I hope it's planning to be expanded to the rest of the city. I think it's a really good improvement. And then I wonder if this was part of the bike and pedestrian master plan, and if there's any other great projects on the way. And considering that this commission is now doing transportation, I wonder if there's any appetite to have an agenda item in the future of an update of the pedestrian and bike master plan, of what projects have been implemented and what are on their way, or which are maybe blocked for any reason. Anyway, thanks again. Have a good one.
Great, thank you, David. And maybe just to check with Lisa, is there any thought from you about an update? It sounded practical, and I'm sure we'll all get into that as we learn more about our new responsibilities.
Absolutely. And staff in community development is currently coordinating with the staff in the Public Works and Engineering Division. Our intent is to bring forth kind of like an introduction to the Transportation Commission's roles, responsibilities, and a little bit of background on transportation, the subject of transportation itself, through one of our on-call consultants who specializes in that, to kind of give like a Transportation 101 overview to the commission. In addition to that, there would be an opportunity for this Planning Commission to meet our Public Works Director, Stephen Machida, and Grace Lee, and they can talk a little bit about the work program Following up on the caller's request to kind of get a little bit of an idea of what's happening with the bike and pedestrian master plan and implementation thereof, we can certainly pass that on to Grace and Stephen and ask that they provide a little bit of an update to the commission on that project as well. The commission may be aware that this is somewhat of a brand new plan. We've had a bicycle master plan in prior years, and recently that plan was updated to include a pedestrian component as well. So the pedestrian component is a brand new component of the plan. So we're excited to hear from the caller and appreciative of the remarks, and I will certainly pass that on. But we're looking at the month of November, probably the second meeting in the month of November, to have that that kind of like I guess we might call it a study session or informational session with the Planning Commission to kind of get you all off on a good footing and then go forward from there. How it will generally work is our public works staff, if they have an item to bring forward that's more of like a transportation and circulation focus, they will coordinate with me and Al, and we will agendize the item as necessary, and they would be the ones that would be speaking on behalf and bringing forward those types of projects. So that's essentially the direction we're headed in.
Great, thank you, Lisa. That was a helpful update, and again, to David, thank you for raising the point, and we'll look forward to, as a group, learning more about this and seeing how this develops here in the city. Excellent. So let's see. Lynette, are there other callers that would like to come in at this time?
There are no more hand raised.
Okay, thank you very much. I think then that moves us to the next item on our agenda. I think all of you have seen that what we would normally do right now is approval of minutes, and we will consider the minutes for last month's September 19th meeting together and approve those minutes at our next session. I think staff has got quite a volume of material both on the new development on industrial, but certainly on the housing element. I want to make sure that they're well represented and documented, and it's a bit of work. So we'll review them at that time. So then that brings us to new business and item 6. And I think Lisa had mentioned prior and taken our input regarding creation of some subcommittees. So I think with that, we'll turn this over to Lisa for a brief presentation.
Thank you, Chair Iacopone. And yes, the item, the one item that we have on the agenda for the Planning Commission this evening is to establish 4 Planning Commission subcommittees and appoint 2 Planning Commissioners and 2 Planning Commissioner alternates to serve on each 2-member committee. As shown here on the slide, the 4 committees consist of the Downtown, Housing Northeast Area, and Development Projects Subcommittee. So just a little bit of a background and to kind of reiterate what's in the staff report, and for anyone watching through Zoom or on television, the purpose to establish subcommittees really kind of is to kind of, the philosophy kind of follows the City Council subcommittee policies or procedures that they have in place. As the Planning Commission may be aware of, there are several subcommittees that have been formed by the City Council, and it really serves as a useful means to connect and meet with City Council members on a variety of different subjects as needed and as informational and as things may be a little bit more highly complex. And given that we have a considerable amount of work underway in the Community Development Department that comes to the Planning Commission, we felt it was a really good model to follow and establish subcommittees at the Planning Commission level. So as most of the commission is aware, we do have a downtown specific plan that's just recently kicked off. We're just right in the very initial stages of kind of working with the community and working with the Downtown Advisory Committee. So things are going to start to kind of come together with respect to that. As the Planning Commission is very aware of, we are updating our housing element, and there's a lot of work once we have a housing element updated. There's a lot of implementation items and housing-related projects, housing-related decisions. So this would be another recommended topic area from staff for a subcommittee. And then next is the Northeast Area Specific Plan. So this is a second specific plan. We haven't kicked this off yet. We are working on executing a contract with Perkins and Will to assist the city with that project, but it hasn't officially started, but we'll be well into it by early next year. And then, of course, the Commission is aware of quite a few significant development applications proposed on the east side. And as these projects come forward, and they're in the variety of different stages or different iterations. There's a lot of work that happens behind the scenes, and staff is aware that the Commission is very interested in getting regular updates on these, whether it be through study sessions, but having a subcommittee where we can present some of the key milestones, or where we are at in the process, where the project is heading with a 2-member subcommittee is going to be beneficial. And then, of course, all of the communication that happens at the subcommittee level can be shared with the full Planning Commission on your regular agendas. As you'll note, and we'll get to in just a little bit after this, one of the regular items on the agenda is reports, correspondence, and general information. And under that agenda item, there's Planning Commission comments or reports. So through these subcommittees, if there's things that staff wants to bring forward and share with the larger commission, we can do that as part of the regular agenda. So this would be an informal process. We could, maybe in some cases, depending upon where a project is, maybe schedule a couple of meetings in advance where they might be kind of regular, or we can do it on an as-needed basis. The real idea at this point is to establish the subcommittees, and then when we need to meet, we'll probably just go forward as needed. And once we have conversations with the subcommittee, we can talk about, what days generally work best, or when we might next want to return for continued conversation with the subcommittee. All of that can happen during the regular meetings that we would have. All of the meetings would take place during the normal business hours, so this would not be any night meetings. We would coordinate with the subcommittee members to see when they're available in conjunction with staff and in conjunction with a consultant if a consultant needs to attend a meeting as well. So we would just be in close contact and communication to set those up as needed. The idea really is to share information about projects, discuss the process that we've been under or that is underway, to provide an updates on significant milestones or key information, and also to receive early feedback or reaction to the work in progress. The goal is really to use the opportunity to kind of use these subcommittees as a sounding board to present draft concepts and strategies early on, so that the Commission is aware of how the project is unfolding and taking shape, rather than kind of getting everything in one large presentation at some point. So that's the real purpose behind the subcommittee, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the Planning Commission has. I'm just going to advance this slide a couple more just to kind of show you where this is going. I have put up 4 separate motions for each subcommittee to assist the Commission when you get to that point. But for now, I will just back up and take any questions you have before we go into public comment and then any kind of discussion that the Commission may want to have. In meeting with the chair earlier this morning, I did offer a suggestion, which would be to have a discussion where the Commission can start to share kind of, maybe which subcommittees they might be leaning to, which ones they're interested in, and kind of get a sense of where everyone is at. And then when the Commission is ready, you can go through them one by one. But certainly, if any other ideas come up in any way you want to take the matter up, staff is certainly open to that. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'll hand it over to the chair and the commissioners if you have any questions.
Great, thanks, Lisa. Ellen.
Thank you, Chair Iacoponi. Lisa, thanks for that presentation. One question, can you clarify the role of the alternates on each committee? Or do they have a specific role, or do they only have a role in the event the regular committee member is not available? Can you add some clarity to that?
Yes, the role of thank you for the question. The role of the alternates is really, we see them, taking a position or moving into, a position of the primary members if the primary two subcommittee members for some reason cannot meet, or if something should change over the course of the year in the subcommittee schedule, and we have a real idea is to have a backup plan. But we're not looking and mixing and matching the 4 individuals. We want to maintain consistency with the 2 primary subcommittee members that are appointed, but should something happen along the way, this is just a good way where we have alternates in place and we don't have to come back and appoint them, have the commission appoint them on a regular agenda.
Vice Chair Clements.
Thank you, Chair. I have 2 questions for Lisa. One is, would the meetings be in person or could they be over Zoom?
Great question. The way we've normally have been doing it recently with the city councils, we have them all on Zoom, and that seems to work best, given everyone's schedules and everyone's busy and has something that they're doing in the middle of the day, right? So Zoom is probably the way we'll go. I don't really foresee a reason to meet in person unless the subcommittee requested it, then we can certainly make accommodations, but otherwise it would be through Zoom.
Thank you. My second question is, do you anticipate some of these subcommittees being more busy than others, at least in the near term, in the next 6-12 months?
That's a great question. I would say probably the ones that might be a little bit busy, I would say at the onset, going from tonight forward, would be the housing, followed by downtown. I would say housing probably could be more immediate as we make our way through the state's review of our housing element. But then really kind of working, starting to kind of, I guess if you could say, get our feet wet with the downtown and northeast, maybe the latter part of this year, early next year. And then I don't foresee those kind of taking a lot of time with the subcommittee, probably just a regularly paced check-in. But I would say that the housing subcommittee probably would come first, as well as development projects, because we are getting closer to finalizing the EIR for 808 Alameda de las Pulgas, which is the townhouse project up on Alameda, a former Black Mountain site, now Vive site. So I could see that one requiring some attention, perhaps in the near future. But the idea is, just to kind of share the schedule that staff has with the city council, we may meet, at least every quarter, sometimes a few times a quarter. So it really just depends kind of where we're at. But I would say for sure housing, probably, I don't really see that we need to meet, like, for example, 3 times a month or anything like that. But we are going to probably want to meet with the subcommittee at least, to kind of share some information once we hear back from the state and to share the direction we're headed. So we plan to keep the subcommittee engaged and understanding of the process going forward.
Commissioner Roof, Commissioner Castaneda.
Just a clarification on the Development Project Subcommittee. You mentioned Black Mountain, and so I'm within the distance radius where I need to exclude, at least for the southern half of that development. So that would probably pose a conflict for the subcommittee as well.
There may be other projects where other commissioners are in conflict. So I think in that case, the alternates would be one of the reasons why we have the alternates, so we can coordinate that to make sure we're following and adhering to Brown Act procedures. So I necessarily wouldn't, recommend that Commissioner Roof, you personally refrain from the development subcommittee, because there there's other projects and there could be other commissioners where the same thing could come up. So that's the idea of the backup plan with the alternates.
Thank you.
Very good. Maybe just check back, Commissioner Garvey, anything else? Okay, great. Maybe we'll ask Lynette, are there any hands raised on the phone? Anyone would like to make a public comment on this topic?
There are no callers at this point.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion to close public comment. I think we need to do that, yes?
Yes, we can. It's not a public hearing, but you can close public comment.
I'd like to move that we close public comment.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Roof?
Yes.
Commissioner Garvey?
Yes.
Commissioner Castaneda? Yes. Vice Chair Clements?
Yes.
And Chair Iacoponi?
Yes. Very good. Maybe just thinking a little bit about this today, it'd be great to, whoever wants to go first, sort of, what are your thoughts? What are your preferences? Anything that you really like to do or be part of or not like to do? And maybe I'll just take a couple of notes. Commissioner Roof?
I did think about the topics and ranked them for my own interest, but and the first one on my interest list is probably the downtown subcommittee, just because it's the center of life in San Carlos, and it seems like there's some really interesting questions how to preserve the outdoor community environment that's been created, yet have an acceptable scene down there. So that's my first choice. Actually, I'm interested in all of them, and should I keep talking, or do we want to kind of rotate around?
Well, if you have another one that you want to put your oar in the water first, go ahead.
I didn't want to be too greedy on that. Number 2 for me is development project subcommittees, just because I'm interested in how that process works. So it's a personal interest for me how the city works with outside parties to come up with a plan that works for everybody, and there's a diversity of projects there, including the biotech area. So that seems like a pretty meaty area that I'm interested in.
Okay, great, thank you. Commissioner Castaneda.
Well, I'm also interested in the downtown subcommittee. I think I would have to say that project, I'm also interested in the downtown subcommittee. That particular project is what got me to get involved with the city and hoping that I could add something. So I am interested in that one. And probably the other one would be the Northeast Area Subcommittee. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Garvey.
Thank you, Chair. I'm okay with being on any of these 4 subcommittees. They all sound really interesting to me. I didn't rank them, but sitting here thinking about it, I think for me, what would be number 1 on the list is the Development Project Subcommittee. From what I know about the projects that we as a commission have looked at since I've been on it, many of these big projects are going to soon be entering the environmental review process in one form or another. And given my background, I would enjoy getting involved in that particular phase of the development. So for me, the Development Project Subcommittee's probably number 1. And I have a tie, I think, for number 2 between Housing and the Northeast Area Subcommittee. They both are very interesting to me, and I think I could contribute something to both of those. So those would be somehow 2 or 3 with me. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Vice Chair.
Thanks, Chair. I would say that my first choice would probably be the Housing Subcommittee. even though I think the busy time will probably be the same busy time of mine at work on the same topic for the housing element, but still, I think that would be very interesting. And my second choice would be development projects, probably, or downtown. But I'm open to anything that needs staffing. Thank you.
Good, thank you. And I think, well, so I suppose the good news is we have 2 hands raised for each of 4 subcommittees. So I really like that. But I'm also mindful that Commissioner Garvey has raised her hand for both housing and for development, and I could see both of those being quite busy. And I, for my part, I'm quite interested in the housing. I think I learned a lot during the housing element phase, and I think we'll have a lot of zoning code change related activity, and that will help me get to think a lot in advance about how to, how we make sure to bring public comment in and work our way through as a group. So I could certainly raise my hand for housing, and then I think. Yeah, maybe I'll just leave it there and say housing would be my choice, and then if we need, well, we have plenty of other names, I think, for the other ones. Commissioner Roof, you were thinking. Okay, so let me then, Commissioner Garvey.
Building on that, I would be happy to serve as an alternate on housing if you and Vice Chair Clements were considering being on the primary contacts. I'd be open to being an alternate.
Very good. Maybe that's a useful jumping off point. And so are there other preferences regarding being an alternate?
Yes, Chair. I'd be happy to be an alternate for the downtown subcommittee to allow others to be on the main committee. Or for that matter, by the way, for the development committee. So whatever's needed, I think it would be fine, but I would like to be on the housing subcommittee, so that either way.
Okay, good. And I think we'll, I haven't done the number of permutations, but I think we'll all find ourselves raising our hands for quite a number. So thank you for bringing that up. Commissioner Castaneda.
I'd be happy to serve as an alternate on any of the committees.
Okay, very good.
And same for me.
Okay, very good. So maybe just see if I can recap, and I should have made something a little more polished, but let me try. So downtown specific plan, Roof and Castaneda. Housing, Clements and Jacoponi. Northeast specific plan, Castaneda and Garvey. And development projects, actually I had 3. I had Roof, Garvey, and Clement. So,
Although Garvey had named that number 1.
yes.
Yes.
Lisa, I know David, Commissioner Roof raised the point about conflict. Can you say again, was there any issue with him being as a primary subcommittee member?
There's no issue. If there are any conflicts of interest, we can certainly address those through the alternate appointments. So that is one project that we know of, but there are a lot more, which is probably what I know you're interested in. So I would say we can work through that. That's not a concern of staff.
Okay, good, thank you. And then I appreciate, Vice Chair, your reminder that Commissioner Garvey did say this was the development projects was a high interest for her. So then I would say for larger development applications or projects, Commissioners Roof and Garvey as numbers 1 and 2, or the two. All right. Shall I recap? Just to check? And then we can, Commissioner Garvey.
Did you want to do the alternates later? I just had a general, I'm happy to be the alternate for the Housing Committee. Given my time commitment with the RDRC, I think I'd like to I'd like to offer no more alternates for me if that's possible. I don't, just to consider that.
I had, so again, maybe my notes are not the best here, but I had noted you as primary for Northeast area, and you're proposing also alternate for housing.
Yes, and primary on development.
And primary on
Yes, I'm happy
development,
with all
yes.
of those, yes.
Okay, good, very good. So then I think we have for the downtown specific plan, Vice Chair Clements has offered to be an alternate.
Yes.
And I'm willing to do that as well. So that would give us the 4 there. And then for housing, we have our primary, and we have 1 alternate. So to Commissioner Roof or Commissioner Castaneda, strong preference? You both said either, but for housing, for being an alternate for housing? Yeah, I think we could use an alternate for the housing subcommittee.
Okay.
Okay? So I'll put Commissioner Roof. And I think for the Northeast specific plan, we've identified Commissioners Garvey and Castaneda. So could we ask Commissioners Clements and Roof to be alternates for those?
Yes, do I have a second assignment? I'm sorry, so I know I'm on housing. Did you have me down as a primary for something
I have you
else?
primary as large development projects.
Oh, I thought that was Roof and Garvey.
I'm sorry, you're right. You do not. That is only your other second. Your only primary is housing.
Okay.
I crossed out the wrong one.
But to your question, yes, I'm happy to be an alternate for, I think you said development projects? Is that what you said, or Northeast?
Northeast, please.
Yes.
Great. And alternates for large development applications.
Well, seeing as I only have 1 primary assignment, I could also be an alternate for development projects. So that would make 3 alternate positions if it's needed, or I can yield.
Commissioner Castaneda, how do you feel about being alternate for the larger development projects?
That's fine, yes. Yes, that's fine.
Great, thank you. Well, I think we've distributed, yes, great. So let's just check Roof, Castaneda, Downtown, and Clements and Jacoponi Alternatives. Housing, Clements and Jacoponi, with alternates.
And through the chair, I'm typing it up on the PowerPoint
Yes.
to try and assist.
Yes, no,
So you all let me know if I got this right.
That's what I'm trying to cross-reference here. Yes, alternates, Garvey and Roof. And then northeast, we have Castaneda and Garvey as primary, and we had Clements and Roof as
Right,
alternate.
For Northeast.
Yes,
Clements and Roof.
Clements and Roof. And then for our larger development projects, we have two subcommittee members, Roof and Garvey, and we had alternates as Castaneda and Clements.
Oh, okay.
Yes, well, that's what I had jotted,
Have
yes.
3 alternates. Yes, that'd be fine. May I ask a question, Chair?
Please.
Lisa, just to clarify, alternates only attend if one of the main members cannot attend? Is that right?
And that's correct, but normally we would want to bring in both of the alternates if something should happen to both of the primary. So, to try and adhere to Brown Act. So the likelihood of that happening, of really having the alternates come into place, I would say is probably maybe more applicable to the development projects in case there's a conflict of interest. Otherwise, we're always going to be able to work with a primary 2-member subcommittee and get a date that works. And certainly if something should happen at the last minute and a subcommittee cannot attend, we'll usually just go forward with the one that shows up at the meeting, and then we can follow up with a second subcommittee member. So although it seems like a lot of obligations right here on the table, it's probably wouldn't end up being the case, but it's just a backup plan.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Lisa, for capturing these. So maybe I'll just give my colleagues a minute to read these formal motions and make sure that their names are showing up as they intended or had agreed. And then we can move from there to formal motions.
I'll make the first.
Commissioner
I'll do
Roof.
the first motion.
Okay?
I move that the Planning Commission appoint Commissioner Roof and Commissioner Castaneda to serve on the Planning Commission Downtown Subcommittee, and that Commissioner Clements and Commissioner Jacoponi serve as alternates.
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Roof,
Yes.
Commissioner Garvey,
Yes.
Commissioner Castaneda,
Yes.
Vice Chair Clements,
Yes.
and Chair Jacoponi.
Yes.
I can go with the,
Yes, please.
I move that the Planning Commission appoint Commissioner Jacoponi, Chair Jacoponi, and Commissioner Vice Chair Clements to serve on the Planning Commission Housing Subcommittee, and that Commissioners Garvey and Roof serve as alternates.
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Roof,
Yes.
Commissioner Garvey,
Yes.
Commissioner Castaneda,
Yes.
Vice Chair Clements, and Chair Jacoponi.
Yes.
I'd like to make the third motion. I move that the Planning Commission appoint Commissioner Castaneda and Commissioner Garvey to serve on the Planning Commission Northeast Area Subcommittee, and that Commissioners Clements and Commissioner Roof serve as alternates.
Commissioner Roof,
Yes.
Commissioner Garvey,
Yes.
Commissioner Castaneda,
Yes.
Vice Chair Clements,
Yes.
and Chair Iacoponi.
Yes. Okay, and number 4. I move that the Planning Commission appoint Commissioner Garvey and Commissioner Roof to serve on the Planning Commission Development Project Subcommittee, and that Commissioners Castaneda and Clements serve as alternates.
I'll second that motion.
Commissioner Roof,
Yes.
Commissioner Garvey,
Yes.
Commissioner Castaneda,
Yes.
Vice Chair Clements,
Yes.
and Chair Iacoponi.
Yes. Very good. Thank you, everyone. That was pretty efficient, and hopefully well, I'm sure we'll all get a lot out of participating on these as we do in our events and help make our meetings here even better. All right, I think next item on our agenda is item 7, reports, correspondence, and general information. Lisa, are there any reports on recent city council actions?
Yes, staff would like to share that a week ago on Monday, September the 26th, staff held a study session on the draft housing element update and presented a similar presentation to the city council, but with the addition of additional information about the comments shared by the Planning Commission and then comments that we received by the public. There were a fair number of comments made by the neighbors on Carmelita Drive, where one of the housing opportunity sites at 1785 San Carlos Avenue was located. This was the site where it was mentioned by our city attorney where there was a deed restriction held on the site. Upon city council direction and city staff, actually this wasn't city council direction, but based upon the comments received and an understanding of the deed restriction set in place, we concluded the study session by clarifying that 1785 San Carlos Avenue would remain RM 59 and not be upzoned to RM 100. Since that time, we did hear from community members that they appreciated that particular course of action. In addition to that, we did hear a lot of comments from property owners and residents living on the east side within the greater East San Carlos neighborhood area, in and around East San Carlos Avenue, where staff had proposed to double the density from 20 units to the acre to 40, maintaining the transitional step standards, which required step downs based upon in building height based upon the distance from the building to the single family resident property line, and also maintaining generous setbacks. These are currently regulations that we have right now in our code, which include a 10-foot side yard setback and a 30-foot rear yard setback. The concern by the neighbors on the east side was, staff's proposal to raise the building height to 40 feet. So what we ended up doing, following city council direction and discussion about a couple of housing sites that were identified on the East San Carlos as part of our housing sites inventory, would be 1, to remove those, and number 2, to lower the height, or rather maintain the 35-foot height maximum in this particular zoning district, and all other transition standards regarding the step downs in building height and the generous side and rear yard setbacks would be held. So the only change that we're making to the area on East San Carlos Avenue is to double the density. And this is because we have done studies to indicate that it is possible to raise the density from 20 to 40 and still maintain the 35-foot height limit. Essentially, the building envelope had the necessary capacity to accommodate that. So that is what we're moving forward with. Staff has been responding to a lot of community comments to the point where we are going to be sending out some informational outreach material to all of the addresses on East San Carlos Avenue, Montgomery, Cherry, and Hall to clarify the direction that we are pursuing and what will be submitted to the state. I will share that there was quite a bit of conversation about the state density bonus and not really being able to fully confirm what type of concession a developer may ask for. And this is something that we cannot confirm. We know that in the past, most of the concessions that have been asked for when developers have used state density bonus in the city of San Carlos had to really do with side yard setbacks or the setbacks. The one project that did ask for an increase in height is 626 Walnut, where they asked for, I think it was 12 additional feet or one more story to accommodate the bonus units that they would receive in exchange for affordable units. So that's something that staff is going to work on and just really work with the community to educate them on that. We know it's challenging to kind of not know for certain, but these are the rules that we have on the books today. State density bonus law is in effect now, and it's in effect on the same parcels, just like any parcel where there's a proposed affordable units on site. So that's just a quick summary of what was discussed at the City Council study session. Staff is continuing to take public comments. We are currently in the process of refining the housing element based on the comments and based on where we can tighten it up and where there were typos and where clarifications are needed. And our goal is to submit that to the state on October. We're either looking at October 14th or 17th, but essentially mid-October. And that concludes the report on recent City Council actions or discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Maybe could you just clarify, and that was helpful to hear more about the background work for the East San Carlos residents and neighborhoods in the neighborhood. The note I took was that the standards as written will stay, and the doubling of the density from 20 to 40 will stay. But a number of the sites that were in the inventory for redevelopment will be removed. And the combination of that plus the step-up features in your review, in the staff's review, seem to be sufficient to create that kind of buffer that we're seeking. Did I hear that right?
That is correct. So all of the standards, well, I will say that right now the code allows between 30 to 35 foot max. So we're going with the 35 max. And the code allows 2 stories, but 3 stories upon Planning Commission use permit approval. We're removing the use permit approval process and allowing 3 stories. So it's in the code now, but we're just removing the additional use permit constraint. So those are the changes. Like you said, the transitional standards stay in place, building step downs and the setbacks. And the one change, I guess you could say the significant change, is increasing the density from 20 to 40. At 20 units to the acre, we explained and shared that none of the sites would be feasible as a housing opportunity site. The community was concerned about having 2 sites identified as part within Appendix A, the housing opportunity sites list. So we said we can definitely remove those and look elsewhere to make up the units. So our buffer number may change slightly. You may recall it was 3595, but based upon the removal of 79 units along East San Carlos Avenue, there's one other parcel that was the corner of East San Carlos and Old County Road. If we take those 2 off, those total 79 units. So we're looking to make those up in another location. So we're currently working on the numbers right now.
Thanks for that. That's helpful to bridge out from where we had ended our deliberations and where City Council picked it up and took it with community's input. Great. Okay, thank you. Are there any Planning Commission comments or reports this evening?
I have a
Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chair. I have a brief report, just that the governor this week signed a package of 40 housing bills, and among them were 2 bills that allow housing to be developed in areas that have commercial uses or land use categories. So depending on the language. And so that's SB 6 and AB 2011. But I guess I just wanted to note that the state is really intent on seeing communities meet their housing goals, set forth housing elements that are compliant in every way and are aggressive in how much housing that we prepare, that could be accommodated in each community. And the governor stated over and over his intention to be serious in addressing any communities that do not adequately plan for housing or support housing development. So, and by signing this package of 40 bills, I think it's a very clear message that they expect local government to do their jobs. That was his comments at the press conference. So I just wanted to share that and say that I'm thankful that the housing element that San Carlos is preparing is going to meet its obligation and then some, and that we need to do everything that we can to find places to build. Because the state is getting much more impatient with local governments that do not do this. And it's getting very, very clear in their statements. So I'm glad that we're in San Carlos, because we're trying to do what we're supposed to do, and I appreciate that. So that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Clements. Any others? Okay, very good. Item C, correspondence. Any correspondence this evening?
None for this evening.
Okay, very good. And then last, item D, planning staff comments, reports, and any updates on current projects.
Yes, I wanted to cover a couple of items that we will have on the agenda for October 17th. As the Commission may recall, there is an agendized item to hear an appeal of a single-family home that was approved by the RDRC. I believe the address is 703 Knoll. Staff will be reaching out to the planning commissioners. I think in this case, there's quite a bit of history and information where I think it will be helpful to have a meeting with the project planner to kind of describe the matters of the appeal. There will be a staff report and information, but this is an opportunity where the commission, if they have any questions or want to know a little bit, have any follow-up, we definitely want to be available, especially for matters that are appealed. So that will be one item on the agenda on October 17th. The other item that we are planning for October 17th is yet another study session. And this is a follow-up study session to look at the changes that would be necessary in our land use element. The Commission may be aware that in a general plan, not only are we required by the state to have a housing element, but we're also required to have a land use element, which describes generally how much of each type of use is allowed to go where and at what intensities. It's not as specific as a zoning designation, but it's a general depiction of what type of uses go where. Because we are essentially working on the housing and element update, which is driving the changes, we need to make sure that other sections of our general plan are consistent with the housing element. So we will need to necessarily make some changes in the land use element. So there could be some minor changes with respect to policies to make sure there's no conflicts, and also with our general plan land use map. In our current land use map, we have generally land use intensities or densities. So we're going to need to adjust those and rename some of those to be consistent with the work that we're doing in the housing element. In addition to looking at changes to the land use element, we are going to take a deeper dive into zoning ordinance changes. As the Commission may recall, it has always been our objective to get a certified housing element, which is a policy document. Again, the housing element does not contain our zoning standards. Our zoning standards are contained separately in the zoning ordinance, but our intention was to have a certified housing element document with policies in place and accompanying regulations and standards that do what the housing element is instructing. So one of the big lifts in the housing element is Action 4.2, which directs the changes to the zoning. So what we want to do is bring everything together in the month of January. So the Planning Commission will be considering the housing, the land use, the safety, the zoning, and an EIR in one fell swoop before it goes to the City Council. So we want our zoning to be in place that implements the housing, the necessary changes in order to meet our RHNA. So we want to take some time while we provided some information in a basic table format about the densities that would be changing. What we are going to do is show you in the actual ordinance the red line strikeout, like what is exactly changing in the ordinance. So we want to be very transparent so everyone understands what exactly needs to change in the zoning ordinance to accommodate our RHNA. That's the second component. And then the third component, every time a city updates its housing element, we also have to ensure our safety element is updated. So by law, we needed to update some goals and policies related to resiliency, climate change, sea level rise, and also to address wildfire, given changes in recent law. So we want to talk about what changes are coming forward in the safety element. Again, this is a lot. It's a study session, but we're starting to be in a place where we want to describe these changes. Share that with the Commission, with the community. These documents will be available online. We can continue to look at them, read through them, and address them once it comes forward for a formal hearing. And then any other, miscellaneous or relevant changes to the general plan would be brought forward. And again, this is not a heavy lift. These are changes really that are directly related to the changes that we need to make in our housing element. So we'll do a study session on that. With that, I don't have any other updates of current projects. Maybe I'll bring an update of some of the development-related projects to you on the 17th when we, right before we adjourn. But those are my updates for this evening.
Well, very good. Thank you for that. It's a lot of things coming down the pike for us, and I'm sure they'll be good. Regarding the preparation sessions regarding the appeal, you'll reach out to each of the commissioners for a time?
That's correct.
Okay, very good. Thank you. One last check across the commission. Very good. Well, this evening's meeting is adjourned.